Okay. Before we get started, I do have a little icebreaker. So if you want to put in the chat an emoji and a word that kind of captures how you're feeling about interviews, just so I can kind of take everyone's temperature and see how we're feeling today. Um, and I was trying to think like if it were me, what my emoji would be. Um, I'll have to think of one. Like, I'm not sure I can see chat here. These are good ones. Yes. And if your emoji is like a stressed out emoji or something like that, just be assured that that's a lot of people. So you're not alone. It makes a lot of people feel nervous and maybe a little bit stressed out. But the good news is the more that you're prepared, the less stressed out that you're going to be. I'm going to take a look at a couple more before I move on here. I like the melty. Um, Ella has stars, so prepared. We've got a lot of this one. I like that one. Melty, melty. Okay, cool. I relate. I relate. Okay, so advanced rounds, second, third round. So first round, mostly this is going to be just validating that you're actually qualified for the role, your basic qualifications. When we're talking about second and third round interviews, that's when there's going to be more specific questions. It's going to get way deeper into your actual skills and competencies. You may be asked to do things like assessments. You may be asked to do projects and things like that. Employers are really looking for evidence so that you have actually had success in the past. They are looking for, more of a culture and a team fit in these interviews, and also, that you are adaptable and you actually have expertise in your area. So I already kind of touched on that these are more specific questions. They're going to be more in depth. You might be talking to people who didn't communicate with either HR or recruiters or the first round people, and they may ask you questions again that you received in the first round, and that's totally fine and to be expected. Don't let it don't let it shake you. If you were prepared for the first round, then you'll be prepared when they ask you again, and you may want to go into more detail at that point, but it's to be expected. One thing that we see a lot is by the time someone gets to maybe like a third round, they might start feeling like, hey, I've got this in the bag. I'm already at the third round. Make sure that you bring kind of that level of professionalism and preparation to every single round. So if you are in that third round, um, just make sure that you are not like thinking that you've got it in the bag at that point. So one thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about today and use Big Interview with is using the STAR method for behavioral questions. So that's situation, task, action, result, and we'll get into that a little bit more in detail when we look at Big Interview. Also, as I mentioned before, you're going to be asked some questions that are around your actual that actual role. So we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that as well. And culture fit. So it's important that you actually, and hopefully everybody knows this, research the company. A lot of companies will have, they'll have their company values. They'll have a mission statement. Those are the things that you want to look for when you are looking for like that culture fit. It's, I think, really great to be able to touch on that mission and how that, resonates with you and things like that. Um, see. So the first thing that we're going to do today that is a little bit interactive is we're going to look at the answer builder. So within Big Interview, there's a lot of different tools. The answer builder is one that I think it's like it's not as like exciting as the mock interview maybe to some people, and a lot of people might feel like they want to get in and practice right away. But especially with second and third round interviews, it's important that you kind of know what you're going to say before you just get in and start speaking. So I always like to have people use the answer builder first and then go in and use the mock interview tool. So we're going to take a look at that. And also before I jump in here, I did just want to mention, I'm not going to assume that everyone has used this before or has even been into Big Interview. So just really quickly, if you haven't been in before, this is kind of what it looks like. And you probably have a link just directly in your career services, I'm kind of assuming. But if you use that link or you go to login, this is just going to take you to single sign-on. So you don't have to register. You don't have to create a new account. You just enter your school credentials and then you're in. So easy peasy. I just wanted to mention that for people that haven't used Big Interview before. Okay. And then when we're in Big Interview, under practice, and then build answer is the answer builder. And we're going to go to start. The answer builder will allow you to build different kinds of answers, but we're going to talk specifically about behavioral questions and using the STAR method. So I'm going to start with a behavioral question here. And it does give you a little bit of background, like, and a good reminder when you first get in here about the STAR framework. So situation, task, approach, results. And we're going to kind of go through step by step and like do an example here. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to name your story. And we're just going to take this one that it's an example. And we're going to have some people go through and do like some real examples. So my examples might not be as good as probably like a real life example. So first is situation. And if you get in here and you don't remember kind of like what to do, there's some good hints here. And then these are really helpful. And I just want to can you guys see this pop up? So I'm not like talking about something. Okay. Sometimes that happens where you're just sharing like a portion of your screen and you start talking about something. People are like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Okay. So this first part is just kind of like giving context. The people that you're talking to, they don't know about your job. They don't know about, the background. So if you just start kind of like going into it from like the task or results part of it, they're not going to understand what you're talking about. So this part is just saying like what the situation was. So in this example, there's 3 bullet points here. I was managing the creation of a new corporate brochure, blah, 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 blah. I was in charge of delivering on time, da, 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 da. The designer that was assigned for the project was very talented, but unfortunately missed a deadline that I assigned. So this is like the setup and the context. This is pretty detailed. You may not need to go into this much detail. It kind of just depends, but this has everything it needs. So we're going to have this in our little situation. Another thing to keep in mind here with the answer builder is I personally like to work with more of like an outline in the answer builder than like a word for word. If you choose to use like script out word for word, you may end up sounding unnatural or like robotic when you're actually presenting this information. So I personally, I would do more of an outline that's like has kind of the main points. And then when I go into the practice tool and practice, I would use that and then, actually say it in natural language as opposed to like, I was managing the creation of our new corporate brochure, because that sounds a little weird. Okay. So situation, task, these are the actions. What did you actually do? See if we have some good examples here. So let's see, this is pretty good. Yeah, so these are the actions. So this person sat down with the team members that they needed to interview. They did some brainstorming. They sent out a questionnaire. So you can hear there's verbs here. These are the actual things that they are doing. Um, just for to be able to have this one filled in. This doesn't actually relate to that first one, so but I'm gonna just go ahead and do it anyway, just so that we can move on to the next box. So this one is probably the most important. So these are your results. You can kind of think of this, when you're writing your resume and you know how everyone's always telling you you need to have something quantifiable, you need to have numbers and things like that. I would say probably that's really important here as well, if you can, if it is quantifiable in some way. So results being, I increased sales by, I'm not in sales, but I increased sales by 95% or, whatever it is. I don't actually think that these examples have numbers in them, but that's my recommendation. Let me see if there's a good one here. My team responded very positively to this approach. They loved the idea of being empowered. And I would say the number, this is fine. You can have the number and have the more like, qualitative stuff as well. But I would, if you possibly can, I would have it measurable and, in some way so that you can kind of demonstrate those results. And I don't know why, but a lot of people end up, they do situation, they do approach, and then they kind of forget to do results. So just kind of keep this in mind. And if you are practicing, and I think most likely people who go through this process will not, but I just often see it when people are maybe doing this without preparing. They'll like get the STA part and then they kind of drop off on the results. So definitely make sure to follow it all the way through. And I think going through this process, you're probably not going to forget that part. There's also, I just have to put something in this box. So there's also a place here where you can add any competencies that you have addressed in this behavioral story. If you have reviewed the job description, which I don't know why I said if, when you review the job description, they will mention the competencies that they're looking for. So this is a great time to hit those competencies so you can show that, not only that you had results from your behavioral story, but also that you are hitting those competencies. So this can be kind of a good reminder to fill those in. So I am going to have you guys do a little practice here. And let me see if my little timer thing will work. So I was going to give them 4 minutes to maybe write down a little bit of do a little brainstorming with a behavioral story using the STAR approach. So I'm going to put that in the chat and then hopefully my little timer, and then we can go around and share, and then we'll do a little mock interview practice. So 1 second here. I have a little prompt for you guys. Okay, so this is the question that we're going to be using. It is, describe a project you successfully managed end to end. What challenges did you face and what did you do to overcome them? And just as a reminder of the STAR method, so STAR is situation, approach, results. And if you want to right now, if you want to log into Big Interview and actually use the answer builder itself, that way you can save it. then that is also a great idea. And I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and start my timer here. Addie, is that clear? Do I need to, should I add anything else, any other directions? Does that make sense to everybody?
No, I think that's clear. And we have 4 minutes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to start my timer now.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to work on mine too.
And you guys should see the timer now. I think I got it working. Yeah.
Oh, I got a question. A stands for action or approach?
Oh, approach.
Oh, okay. I think that it could be either way, right? It's like the approach that you take, which is also the
Oh, I'm
action.
sorry. Yes, approach. Sorry. All right. Let me stop my timer here. Okay, so would anyone like to unmute themselves and share kind of what you brainstormed while we had that time? And if not, then maybe I can pick on someone.
I don't mind.
Danielle, okay.
Okay. I used a big interview, so let me go back to what I wrote.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thanks for being willing to share, Danielle.
Thank you. I've never heard a big interview before, and this seems so cool. So
Awesome.
the problem or task that I outlined was that in May 2019, I was appointed as the Region 2 Comfort Zone Coordinator within the National Society of Black Engineers. My role and responsibility in that role was to advocate on behalf of 15 collegiate chapters in North Carolina and South Carolina. My first big event was a zone summit, which is a gathering of professionals and students in the name of the mission. And tasks included like gathering food, finding the venue, speakers, managing a committee, and then also reporting up. And so the actions that I took to actually put on the summit included first creating a Gantt chart with all of the tasks from May until October. Stuck to it. And I also had to adjust to last minute emergencies, such as a president not being able to find catering and instead having to improvise. The results, based on my improv skills, but also management skills, was a beautiful gathering of 101 members. Relationships were formed that lasted well beyond the few hours of the summit. Some chapters even started their reactivation process, and our members became visible to local companies.
That's awesome, Danielle. That's awesome. One thing I'll mention, so the way that this question was written, the person actually did ask about challenges, but sometimes they're not there. Sometimes they'll just say, describe a project you success, they may say just the first part of it. I do think, Danielle mentioned that there were some challenges and how she approached them. Even if they don't specifically ask about the challenges, if you can work that in, I would say go ahead and do it, because it's going to show that you can problem solve. It's not a very, it is storytelling, behavioral story is a story, and a story is not that great without a little bit of conflict. But yeah, it just shows that you have problem solving ability. It's easy to manage a project that has no has no challenges, or easier. So yeah, that was great. Thanks, Danielle. Would anyone else like to share?
I can share.
Cool.
Can y'all hear me good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so this particular situation, I was the director and writer on a film shoot, a short film shoot that was using 2 different locations that were residences. And the problem basically lied in the fact that on the second filming day, one of the residents did not realize we would be filming inside, and they were upset at that because they had planned things around being inside that day. So in terms of the approaches we took, even prior to the incident, we communicated with the residents through email as well as in person with the shoot day, like in person a couple days before the shoot day. And we had a house delegate to tell all the housemates, other housemates that weren't there, like what was going on and what to expect in terms of our shooting schedule. When the individual did bring up that they had an issue with us being inside, we had the house delegate speak to them upstairs, as well as the producer, who issued an apology for the confusion. We then restated the ways that we had communicated prior, both in email and in person, and then offered to text them individually as a reminder of the upcoming schedule moving forward. And then we reiterated how we would be cleaning the inside area that we had used. We also sent them a thank you basket and a note after the shoot to the entire house as a courtesy, and they really appreciated that. So the results were great. The individual actually came up to me after the whole shoot and was like, thank you so much for your professionalism and the way you were kind to me about the whole thing. So yeah, it was a great lesson in problem solving and professionalism and management.
That's a great example. Valentina, that was Valentina, right?
Yeah.
I really liked how you pulled out, like I could hear, all those individual competencies, conflict management, communication. And I really liked that. Nice. Okay. Can we do maybe one more?
I can share.
Okay, great.
Thank you. I did a project which optimized the performance of, which needed to optimize the performance of simulation for lithium-ion systems. The challenge involved that the simulation were computationally expensive and slow, limiting our ability to generate meaningful results within a reasonable time. So to tackle this challenge, I first identified the inefficiency in the computational workflow. I optimized the performance by applying the machine learning models, which dramatically reduced the computational time by a factor of 9. Additionally, I analyzed the data to validate the results, achieving 95% agreement with the ground truth. So this ensured that the optimizations didn't compromise the accuracy of the simulation. And this project resulted in a publication in the Journal of Chemical Physics and presentations at 2 international conferences. This experience taught me the importance of the interdisciplinary problem solving, as the challenge involved not only computational material science, but also programming and machine learning. Yeah, that's I want to say thank you.
That was awesome. I think I understood most of that, but
So this is the kind of research project.
yeah. That was awesome. And I think you guys can kind of hear the pattern of these and kind of hear kind of what it sounds like to go through these steps. And you know, hearing them now when you put them in that format, it's so compelling. I'm like, I want to hire all of you. I feel I'm like so yeah, I think you guys did a great job, and hopefully that kind of makes sense to you. But you know, Danielle said she has a tendency to maybe skip parts of the question. So I think it's also using the answer builder is a great way to kind of like reinforce it in your mind so that you don't kind of drop parts of it. And when you're practicing, you'll remember. So awesome. I want to talk a little bit about I think that I'm not sure if that was directed at me. I think that there will be a recording sent out after the session. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about just the mock interview tool and kind of how to use that to practice. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm glad that we're reaching some people today that haven't maybe seen Big Interview before. There we go. If you're in Big Interview and you want to practice, probably the easiest way is just to go to practice sets. For second and third round, you know, you're going to get more specific questions. You're going to get questions that are going to be more like industry related. Most of the time when I'm in here and I'm doing student demos, I go to general questions and I go to top 10 questions. And I would still tell you, even though you're going to want to practice some more specific questions, you can't practice these top 10 questions enough in my mind. And also just getting familiar with the variations of the top 10 questions, because sometimes people ask them in different ways. So things like, tell me about yourself, you know, that could look like, walk me through your professional background. You know, like this one, instead of tell me about yourself, it's walk me through your resume and your background. And in a second and a third round, they're going to ask you again. They're going to ask you some version of that. If you want to look at industry specific questions, we can back up and kind of, I'll show you where that is. That's going to be here under industry. I don't know when the timing will be, but we're also going to be launching a new feature where you will be able to generate questions based on a job description. So that will be really super helpful, especially with these second and third rounds. For industry questions, I would stick to this tab that's called most popular occupations instead of the ONET database. The reason is most of these were actually generated by like subject matter experts. These are very general, the ONET database ones. It's like, tell me about your experience as a underwater basket weaver. So I would just like stick to these because they're more specific. So if you do want to look at some more industry specific questions, I would come here. I am going to back up though and go back to general. And I'm not looking at chat right now. Did we have a question come through? Okay, I thought I saw something.
I answered it. We're good.
Oh, thanks. So I'm just going to show you how this works really quickly. So if you want to use this part to prepare as well, you can. And I'm gonna, sometimes it doesn't like it when I have both cameras on. Okay, so if you do want to come here and practice, it's pretty simple. So if you want to go through the first question, you're going to hit start recording, and you can do these out of order too. So you don't have to like do every single one in order. And then you are gonna, I'm like, what do I want to say here? Say your response. I've been working in marketing for the last 2 years since graduating from Cornell, and I love it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's always feels silly. But then you are going to hit stop recording. And if you are satisfied, you can hit save answer, or you can re-record, or if you want to trash it, you can do that and then hit save. And that just gets saved to your video library. And then if you want, you can go on to the next question. Oh, I didn't realize I had her muted. She does actually say the question.
What makes you qualified for this position?
If you want to go through the whole set, you can. If you want to jump around, you can. So if you know you want to do like a couple industry questions and a couple kind of more general questions, you can do that. So you don't have to go through the entire set. Some good sort of ways to think about these practice videos or ways to get feedback. If you go to your video library, these are all too short. I don't know if I have any. If they're 30 seconds or longer, by the way, you will get some automated feedback. I do a lot of these webinars and little demos, so it's usually just me talking for a few seconds, but I may have, okay, here we go. The AI feedback looks like this. You will get a medal, and the medals are bronze, silver, and gold. So bronze being the lowest score, gold being the highest. And then you get a breakdown of these different criteria. So you can kind of see how you did and an action plan as well. And then if you want to re-record, you can go ahead and re-record and get a better score. The other thing that I would say that is really helpful in this area is just doing a self-review. And I think the self-review and the AI feedback work well together. And the reason for that is that we don't really have a good perception of like our oral, no one does. I'm not singling anyone in this group out. In general, it's hard for people to assess, like self-assess their oral communication. When you watch yourself back, it is really eye-opening. So you can read through that feedback and kind of think about it and then watch yourself back. And then you see, oh, I am using a lot of disfluencies. That is really true. Or I'm doing something crazy with my hands, or I'm talking too fast. And it kind of, I think, helps you like understand that a little bit more. Even if you read through the AI feedback, watching the video back really kind of like, it really hits home. There is an option to also rate yourself and give yourself some notes. And you can do that part too if you want, but I don't think it's like totally necessary. So if you do a self-review, you can go through and rate yourself and then write some notes. But even just watching it back and going through the AI feedback is possible. If you want to get extra gold stars, or if you have someone that's willing to do this and you want to do like a peer review, Maybe you have someone that you want to like trade videos and you guys can give each other feedback. That is also, I think, really helpful. If you do want to share your videos with someone, it's really easy to do that. If you're just sharing one, you can say share, or you can select them. Like if I want to share these 3 videos and come up here to share now, you can either use this copy link and just send someone the link, or you can send it over email. And that person doesn't have to have a Big Interview account. They can just click on the link and watch your videos and give you some feedback. So if you do have anyone in your life that would be willing to do that, you know, if it's a peer, if it's like a former employer, someone that you've, you know, a former coworker, something like that, I think that's also a great way to use the system. So lots of different ways to get feedback and practice. Okay. I was thinking about having you guys maybe record and maybe try out and we can watch them back. I'm trying to think if I still want to do that or not. How, yeah, you know what, let's do it. We will really quickly, no, never mind. I don't want to do it. But I do, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to record in the system and share it back with us at Big Interview. So we'll talk about that towards the end. So I think we'll skip that part. Okay. I'm going to go back to my, okay. So we talked about the answer builder. We will skip the mock interview practice for now, but you guys will have an opportunity to practice on your own. Boop. Okay, so some final things just to keep in mind. Make sure that you are actually researching the company and being prepared. That's where that kind of culture fit comes in, and being able to kind of talk about how you are a fit. Being prepared and practice, that's kind of what we were talking about this whole time. So the more you practice, the less nervous that you're going to be. And we want to turn those little nervous emojis into the little star emojis like we saw in the beginning. Also, you do not, you know, you're not guaranteed anything just because you're in the 3rd round. You don't have it in the bag. Make sure that you're maintaining that professionalism the entire way. We have some resources available from Big Interview. There is a blog article on 2nd round interview strategies and also this slide deck. And then we have a special sort of offer available for folks that attended this webinar. There is an assignment on your Big Interview site, and I'll put the code in the chat. If you go to your assignments tab and enter in this code, it's going to take you to this 1 question assignment, and it is actually the question that we practiced today. So if you had a good response and you practice with the answer builder, you can come and record yourself. And we're going to pick 1 person from this workshop who records themselves in this assignment, and we're going to feature them on the blog, which is really cool. Our blog gets a ton of traffic. So that can be something that you share on your LinkedIn. That can give you some visibility to employers and just generally make you look cool to your friends to say that you were on the blog. So if you've never done an assignment before, it's really easy. You just drop that code in and say go, and then submit when you're done. And I'm dropping the code in the chat right now, and it'll also be in that slide deck. So there's the code. It is case sensitive in case you try to capitalize any letters. So yeah, that'll be a cool opportunity to get featured on the blog. Someone from marketing will reach out and kind of interview you. So that's also pretty cool. I think that was my last slide, but we do have some time for questions. So I'm gonna stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know in the beginning of the presentation, you said that there is a chance that you get repeated like the same question. Is it okay to also like repeat your same answer, or is that like them repeating that question on purpose? Like maybe they want to get a deeper response or something?
So there's a couple scenarios that could happen. So one scenario is like you were in like more of a screening interview with maybe someone from HR or maybe a recruiter, and you go on to the second interview and it's totally different people. And the people in the second interview have pretty much might not even know what you said in the first interview. In which case it's completely repeat it verbatim. That's totally fine. There could be a situation where you're in a second round interview and you go on to a third round, and maybe there's someone in the second round that is also sitting in on a third round. And maybe another person there asks the same question. I also think it's probably pretty okay to say it in the same way. And you can kind of make, if you feel awkward about it, you can say like, well, Sarah already heard this during the first interview, but I'll kind of share with you what I shared with her. But they're not trying to like catch you. They're not trying to be like, we got you. It's not like an Easter egg that they're trying to get you to catch. But yeah, I mean, it can feel a little bit awkward, but everybody's just trying to get all the information that they need to get, and they may not have communicated. So yeah, if it's a situation where it's the same person, just be like, yeah, we already discussed this, or I already kind of, shared this with so and so, but let me share it with you. Just whatever makes it not awkward for you. Do I have a system on how to approach researching companies? I don't want to contradict anything that your Career Center would say. So my approach, it's not very complicated. I go to the company's website, I look at their mission statement, value statement, things like that. I look the people up on LinkedIn who are going to be, if I know who's going to be interviewing me, I will look those people up on LinkedIn so I know who I'm talking to. If there's anything, do a quick Google search of recent news. Because like if something big just happened with that company, like you want to be aware of that. Or if it's something that naturally comes into the interview, you can kind of mention it. I wouldn't like shoehorn it in, but if it comes up naturally, it's good to just be aware of anything in the news. Career Center folks, or anything you want to add, or
Sorry, I was answering another question
Yeah,
in the
sorry.
chat. Yeah, in terms of searching, yeah, just looking up the mission and vision on the employer's own website and following their news and social media and finding some key points that attract you to that company or that organization, to answer the why us, because they are going to ask, why do you want to work for us specifically? And you shouldn't fall back on, oh, you pay well and I like your benefits, because every employer wants to hear that they're special and that like you resonate with their culture, that you'll be a good fit in that way.
Yeah, and we all know that we're there to make money, so there's no use in saying it. That's kind of yeah. We had a question about thoughts on displaying body decorations in an interview, such as dyed hair, ear piercings, or tattoos. So my personal thought on this is that you are interviewing this company for a culture fit for you just as much as they're interviewing you for culture fit. If you have tattoos, if you have dyed hair, and that's a part of your culture and who you are, you want to make sure that you are finding a company that is alignment with you. And so if you find yourself having to hide who you are a lot, or, or be thinking about that when you're going into an interview, it's maybe not a culture fit. That's just my personal perspective. And I think that there are a lot of companies in 2025 that are totally fine with those things, and that you would be in alignment with. So I would encourage you to find the companies that you're most aligned with and be yourself and not have to hide who you are. Okay. Let's see. Do we have other questions?
Do you mind if I add something to that response?
Yeah,
I think
please.
this also addresses the researching companies question. Doing informational interviews with people who work in that company, specifically in the function that you're interested in, that can really help shed light on their culture, and also, whether they would be okay with, any body art that you have, just getting a sense of like what their vibe is generally, and whether it's a good fit for you. So we at the Career Center always recommend doing informational interviews with alumni, ideally from USC, who are working in those organizations, to get a better sense of that.
Do you have any? Thank you, Addie. Thanks for adding that. Do you have any approach to prepare answering technical questions to the job function on the second interview? So I would say, trying to find examples of technical questions that they've asked in the past has been one approach. So, you can look up questions like that on Glassdoor just so that you know what you're preparing for. They will usually mention which tools or what languages that they're looking for. So if it's Python, or if it's so making sure that you're prepared to speak, whether or not you have expertise in those areas, that you're prepared to speak about whatever those things are. And if there's something in the job description, something technical or a skill that you don't have, just, making sure that you have something prepared to talk about, a time where it's well, I may not know this programming language, but in my last job, I had to learn whatever very quickly, and I was able to learn it. So it's not always a deal breaker. I think that's all I have to say about that. What is the max amount of questions to have at the end of the interview? Vanessa, that kind of depends on, I always say have at least 3 in mind, and then you can kind of get a feel for the flow of the interview. If everyone is very chatty and super engaged, and they're engaging you and asking you to what else do you want to know? Just listen to those, listen and be aware of those cues, and then just continue the conversation until it has a natural ending. If it seems like if they're very mindful of the time and they're trying to be done, I would just say ask your questions and be done with it. So there are times, especially if you are interviewing with multiple people, where you have a lot of, it's fine to ask a lot of questions, and they're not going to mind. Any tips for panel interviews? I'm kind of blanking on that one. Not off the top of my head. Addie, do you have specific tips for panel interviews?
Yeah, I know they can be nerve-wracking. So I like to focus on, pin one person that I'm talking to at a time. Usually with panel interviews, there might be they take turns asking questions. So I'll just pin that person and focus on them, so I don't feel overwhelmed by all the faces. And then I'll also turn off my own camera view, so I'm not distracted by my own mannerisms. Because we can, feel we're our own worst critics, and you can feel self-conscious doing that. So that does help calm the nerves. And yeah, just generally, taking it one question at a time.
Thanks, Addie. second round interviews are typically with the hiring manager or someone that works on the team you'll be in. What are some questions that are good for hiring managers versus HR initial interview? So I I tend to like it when I like what does success look like? What are the what are the KPIs? Those are good ones. You can ask about the data. I think about the day to day. I always like to ask like what are the best parts of this job and what are the worst parts of this job, and kind of hear about that. And then I guess just versus HR, I mean, what are the next step? What are the next what are the next steps look like? What is, asking more about about process related things when you're working with HR. Addie, what do you think for good questions?
Yeah, so yeah, HR is usually going to be more about like benefits, and like if you have questions about benefits or like salary and you want to get those out of the way up front, or just about general policies and things like that, or like details of the role, HR is a good person. But then for the hiring manager, that's where you might want to ask them more about like their team culture, maybe what their expectations are for you in the first like 60 to 90 days or the first year, maybe some challenges that they're facing that you can support with. So that'd be a lot more like getting a sense of your specific role within that team versus the just general policies and benefits and things like that.
Rosario asks, how about group interviews with others seeking the same position? It always feels like a daunting competition. Oh yeah, that's a rough one. I mean, it can be a good opportunity though, just to set yourself apart from the competition. When you're thinking about doing an interview on your own, you may not have a feel for what that competition is. So I know that is nerve-wracking, but at the same time, like you're getting a lot of information about the other people, and you need to try to use that to your advantage. And so listening to others and just really being strategic about how you can set yourself apart and appear to be the candidate. So I would just use that as an opportunity to be gathering information and being strategic, but I know that is nerve-wracking. Yeah. Is it appropriate to ask about salary upfront? I think Addie kind of covered this, and if you're doing a screening with HR, it's totally fine to ask HR about salary. And I don't know, Addie, do you all have any laws about salary transparency? So we do in Colorado. And so
in California as well. So it should be usually every employer in California should have a range listed, or they have to publish their salary in the job posting. And then you can always ask HR as well about if you have any like clarifying questions about that. With the ranges, you can ask, what would I need to do to be at this level in the range? And sometimes there's a range and then separately there's a budget. And so like the range would be indicative of jobs that are with similar titles across the organization and how much they get paid, the range in which they get paid, versus the budget would be how much they're willing to pay for this specific position. So that can be confusing sometimes.
I think I missed one here. Any tips for doing a presentation for the panel? I mean, this is your opportunity to really really kind of shine and show a lot of different skills, show your communication skills, show if they've asked you to do like an actual project, to show your critical thinking and things like that. So I would just say I have seen presentations where people were quite general. I've seen presentations where people had very poor looking slide decks. So this is not really it's not really specific tips, but just do your best to be prepared. Make sure that you have professional look, if you make sure they're professional looking, especially if you're going into any, I've seen presentations from designers that look terrible. That's not great. Make sure that you're practicing it just like you would your review. Yeah, that it's just an opportunity to really shine there. So make sure that you're making the most of it. Best way to prepare for behavioral interviews. I mean, I think just following that STAR format is a good. I don't know if Abby has anything else to add to that.
Sorry, I don't believe I do. And also I was answering a private question that was sent
Sorry,
to
I
me,
keep
so
calling on you.
that's okay.
I'm trying to multitask here. Okay, well, I think we did pretty good on time. We've got 2 minutes left. So I think that this recording is going to be made available to you. I'm going to send out the slide deck so that it can be distributed. And yeah, go in and record yourself. I wanna be able to feature someone on the blog, and that'll be really cool and a good opportunity for you. Thanks for doing this with me today. I've really enjoyed hearing from people. I love to do something that's a little bit more interactive, and you guys had really good, so it was cool. Yeah, thank you guys. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks so much, Abby. Thanks everyone for your participation.
Thanks.
Happy Career
Bye.
Fest.